Okay. All right. So we're going to head over to the yoga mat here. So we're going to go ahead and take child's pose. So coming down onto those hands and knees and sending your hips back to rest on the heels. Arms come up nice and long overhead. And maybe you rest your forehead on your yoga mat. Maybe rocking the forehead from side to side, massaging that space between the eyebrows. Separating the knees just a little bit so your belly can rest on your thighs. I'm going to take 3 nice, long, deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth to a count of 5 for each. Dropping into the sensations of your body, preparing the body for your practice. Releasing tension in those shoulders every time you exhale. And at any point, if you need to take a little rest, this position is always a nice option to come out of an exercise or a pose. So setting the hips up, bringing the hands underneath shoulders, knees underneath hip, taking a couple of rounds of cat-cow to warm up the spine, dropping the belly down to the floor as you inhale, looking up toward the sky. Exhale, rounding the spine, drawing your belly button in. Maybe taking your gaze down to your knees. Inhale, drop it down, look up. Exhale, rounding. And one more. Sending those hips back again into your child's pose, reaching the hands up nice and long. We're a little more active here in this pose. You're just going to walk your hands over to the right side of your mat, sinking the left hip down toward the floor so you can really anchor down and feel a nice stretch in the muscles between the ribs and the crest of the upper hip. Breathing deeply into that space, creating some length as you exhale. Walking the hands back to center to reset, and then gently walking the hands over to the left side of the mat, dropping the right hip down to elongate. Inhale, breathing into that right rib space. Exhale, gently releasing to the center of the mat as you press it back up into your tabletop position. So we're just going to take a couple of rotations here. So placing your left hand in the middle of the mat, right hand comes up behind the head, just tapping your elbow toward your wrist, and then rotating the elbow up, maybe taking your gaze out to the side, and then gently releasing back down. We're going to take that 2 more times on the right side. Exhale, releasing the hand back down to the center of your mat, placing the left hand up behind the head, rotating upward. Exhale, release. Rotating at that mid-back. And last one, gently releasing the hands back down to the floor. You're going to take an exercise called bird dogs. So we're engaging the back line of the body here, untucking the toes. Right hand, the thumb rolls up to the sky as you lift that off of the earth. Sending the left, so the opposite leg toward the back wall, driving through the heel, reaching from fingertip all the way to the heel. Now checking in to make sure that your belly button is drawn into the spine. So we have a nice straight line here. Exhale, release that back down to the floor. Alternating, left hand reaches up, right heel kicks back. Drawing that belly button in toward the spine, elongating all the way from fingertip to heel. Breathing, and exhale, gently release. I'm going to take that at your own pace. Let's do 3 on each side, just alternating between the right side and the left side. Warming up that back body. Trying to keep the hip points square with the floor, so not rocking the pelvis back and forth. Great. So taking the toes, you're going to tuck them. Send your hands out toward the front of your mat, coming into a little wider position of the hands, splaying those fingertips and the index finger points to the front of the mat, tucking the toes, sending the hips up and back into your first downward facing dog. Not necessary to extend the knees here. The hamstrings and the calves may not have the length for that yet, but just maybe pedaling the heels out, noticing the sensations of where you're experiencing some tightness today. Taking your gaze up to the top of your mat, you're going to shift your hips forward as you gently walk your hands up to meet your hands at the top of your mat. Separating the feet hips distance apart, you're going to go ahead and bend your knees, resting your belly on your thighs. Allowing the head to drop down, creating some traction in the spine and the neck, letting gravity kind of do the work here and pull you down toward the floor. Grabbing the opposite hand to opposite elbow, allowing the shoulder blades to come heavy. So rocking from side to side, noticing a nice stretch in the low back here. Coming back into center, planting the feet firmly on the floor. Gently release your hands as you roll it up vertebrae by vertebrae. So you really can articulate here using your core to engage each of the little muscles all the way up the spine so that your head is the very last thing to come up. Good. So taking the hands out to the side, coming all the way up into your tall mountain pose. You're gonna exhale, arms come down to the side, gently fold forward. Taking the hands toward the floor, maybe the knees can straighten out a little bit more. Inhale, hands come to shin, flat back. Nice long line from the top of the head down to the tailbone. Exhale, gently releasing those hands back down to meet the earth. Planting them firmly on the floor as you step it back into your first high plank. Shoulders soften away from the ears, dropping the hips down toward the floor to create a nice long line from the top of the head all the way to the heels. If you need to lower the knees down, that's perfectly fine. But we're going to take a couple of Spider-Man planks here. So right knee to right elbow, and then back out. Left knee to left elbow, back out. Taking 2 more on each side. Breathing. Exhale, releasing the knees back down to the floor. Finding a nice stability in the breath here. Tucking the toes, sending the knees back up. We're going to take a cross-body Spider-Man plank now. So right knee to left elbow. And extend left knee to right elbow. And 2 more on each side. Using those core muscles to pull your knee even further up toward that elbow. Extend it out nice and wide. Sending it back into downward facing dog. Maybe you can straighten your knees out a little bit more here. Pedaling the heels. Shoulders soften away from the ears. Exhale, taking your gaze up to in between your hands, walking your feet up to meet your hands. Softly bending the knees as you roll it up into a mountain pose. Planting those feet firmly on the floor, gently lifting the kneecaps by engaging the thighs. Squeezing those glutes, drawing the shoulder blades down and back to open across the chest. And then spiraling those palms to face forward. And finally stacking the head on top of the shoulders. And breathe. Inhale, stepping the right foot back into your warrior 2. Front heel bisects the arch of the back foot. Front knee is positioned over the ankle. You draw the shoulder blades down and back, drawing the belly button in toward the spine, sending the hands out nice and long from fingertip to fingertip. Maybe you send your gaze down that front finger. Exhale, reverse warrior, back hand toward back leg as you extend that left arm up toward the sky. Exhale, warrior two, bringing that front elbow to front knee. Right hand comes up toward the sky. Maybe you take your gaze up. Maybe you keep your gaze forward, depending on the mobility of your neck. Maybe it feels comfortable for you to bring that arm up overhead so that the bicep comes toward the ear. Opening up across the chest. Don't let that upper shoulder collapse forward. Be active in your core, so don't rest on your elbow. Good. Inhale, coming back up to warrior two. Straightening that front leg. You gently shift your back hip toward the back wall. Keeping those outer hip muscles engaged here. You're going to send your upper body toward the front leg for a gentle stretch in your hamstring, so the muscles behind the leg. Maybe even that inner thigh. Inhale, use your core to pull you back up to your standing position as you press off of that back foot, coming up to the top of your mat. Feet plant firmly on the floor together. Gently engaging the inner thighs by pressing your knees together as you sweep your arms up by your sides, sinking the hips back down toward the earth. Drawing that belly button into the spine, creating a long line from top of head to tailbone. Take a peek down at your toes. You should be able to see them here in chair pose, past your knees. Keeping that chair pose, exhale, bringing hands to heart center, shifting all of your weight onto that left leg for a single leg chair here. So a little bit of balance, a little bit of heat generating in the thigh. Straighten that standing leg as you come up into half staff pose. Knee bent in front of you and active in those toes, so pulling those toes up toward your shins. Good. If you come out of it, coming right back into it. And then exhale, bringing that sole of the foot toward the inner shin, or maybe even the inner thigh for tree pose. Rooting down into the earth as you grow tall through the crown of the head. Pressing that sole of the foot into the inner leg, pressing the hands together at heart center, or floating those arms up overhead to grow your branches. Good. Finding that focal point on the floor, finding your balance, softening shoulders away from the ears. Exhale, gently releasing that foot toward the front, again for your half staff pose. Sweeping the arms down by your side, you're going to kick that heel back for warrior three. Holding, finding that focal point. Exhale, gently releasing that foot back down to the earth. Great job. A little bit of balance there this morning. Stepping that left foot toward the back of your mat for warrior two on the other side. Knee comes over ankle. Front foot bisects the arch of the back foot. So draw your shoulder blades down and back, floating the arms out nice and long in front of you. Engaging those hip muscles to rotate that hip open just a little bit. Really, the heat should be generated in the thigh here, though. Reverse warrior, bringing that back hand toward the back knee as you extend that right hand up toward the sky. Exhale, using core to pull you back up to warrior two, bringing right elbow to right knee, extending that left hand up toward the sky, again, keeping your gaze forward or looking out, depending on what feels good for your neck. Exhale, maybe releasing the hands up toward overhead. Option to keep your hand up toward the sky. Checking in to make sure that you're not pressing down into the thigh with your elbow and that you're active in those glute muscles and that core. Using that to pull you back up to standing, coming into your warrior two, straightening that front leg, shifting that back hip toward the back wall while keeping the outer hip muscles engaged. Reaching gently toward the front leg for triangle pose. Exhale, use your core to pull you back up to center, pressing off of your back leg to come back up to the top of your mat. Sweeping those arms up overhead, sending the hips back into your chair pose again. Checking to make sure that you can see those toes past your knees. Hands come to heart center as you sink a little bit lower, shifting your weight onto your right leg. Holding, breathing, finding that focal point. One side might be a little different than the other. I know my right is feeling a little more unstable today. Straightening that standing leg, bringing that left foot off of the floor so that you are coming into half staff pose. Gently drawing the toes up to the shins, engaging those outer hip muscles of the standing leg, growing tall. Breathing. Exhale, releasing the sole of the foot either to the inner shin or the inner thigh. Pressing that foot into the inner leg, drawing that knee outward, anchoring that foot, rooting down to the earth as you grow tall, pressing your hands together, softening the shoulders away from the ears. Finding your focal point, maybe on the floor, a couple feet in front of you. Breathing. Exhale, releasing that tree pose. Sweeping the hands toward the back wall as you extend that back leg out straight for warrior three. Rotating the hips so that both hip points are facing the floor. Shoulders also square with the floor. Breathe. And it's okay if that ankle begins to wobble. That's how we build our balance. That's how we build ankle strength. Exhale, gently releasing that foot back down to meet the earth. Coming into your mountain pose. Begin to stabilize the breath as you breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. If you have your band nearby, go ahead and grab that and go ahead and put that band above your knees. Okay, so stepping those feet out about hips distance apart, band is above the knees. To gently press out into that band to keep the knees from collapsing inward, you're going to take 10 air squats. So sending those hips down toward the floor, keeping knees over toes, and squeezing those glutes to return back up to standing. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Sending your feet over toward one side of the mat. Taking the left leg out to the side, you're going to step out into a side lunge. So the objective here is to take your stance wide and then bend that right knee over the toes, pressing off of that right leg to come back up to standing. For 10. Really feeling some heat generating in the thigh, as well as the outer hip due to the resistance of the band. Keeping the chest up nice and proud here. 9 and 10. Great. Taking your stance over to the opposite side of your mat. Stepping that left leg out to the side to bend that left knee over toe, pressing off of that left leg to return back up to standing. Breathing. Keeping that sternum lifted nice and proud. 8, 9, and 10. Great job. Coming back into the center of your mat, you should notice your heart rate starting to increase a little bit right now. Stepping right foot out to the side, left foot comes back into a curtsy lunge. Pressing off of that back leg, shifting your weight to perform that on the other side. Alternating back and forth 5 times on each side. And last one here. Gently finding your breath, some stability there, walking it up to mountain pose, keeping the band around your knees. Drawing shoulder blades down away from those ears, spiraling the hands forward for your mountain pose. Inhale, reaching up to the side. Exhale, forward fold. Hands come down to the earth. Stepping that right foot back, left foot back. Option to come down to your knees here. Alternating shoulder taps. Right hand to left shoulder. Left hand to right shoulder. 3, 4, and 5. Exhale, gently releasing those knees back down to the earth. You're going to drop the knees, chin, chest down toward the floor. Exhale, palms come to the side of your body. So I'll demonstrate first. This is a great shoulder mobility and strengthening exercise. So palms lift up off the floor in this I position, come out to the side in a T position, and then up into a Y. And then we're going to rotate it back down. So keeping that chin tucked, lifting the palms up off the floor at your sides, bringing those out to a T position and floating up into a Y. Exhale, drop it back down into a T, down to your I. And we're floating through for 4 more. Engaging those glutes. If you would like to make this a little bit more challenging, you can press the knees out into the band and gently hover your feet up off the floor. Driving toward the back of the wall with the heels. So the toes are lifted gently up toward the shins. Great job. Tucking those toes, shifting your weight over onto the left side. Coming into a side plank, elbow is underneath shoulder. Option here to bend the knees like we did last time, where knees are in line with hips or in line with shoulders. Or you can straighten the legs to come up into your side plank. I'm going to take the bent knee variation. So lifting those hips up toward the sky. And you're going to lift that band up for the sky as well to get into those outer hip muscles. Holding for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, lift up, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, release it back down to the earth. Repositioning that elbow underneath the shoulder if necessary. Taking that again. Inhale, lift up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Gently exhale, release. Flipping it over onto the other side. Either straight leg variation or bending that elbow underneath the shoulder. Hand on hip. Pressing into the elbow, lifting the hips up off the floor. Lifting up into that band for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release. Repositioning that elbow if it floated away from you. Good. And lift up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Gently releasing. Rotating onto your seat here. You're going to send those legs out nice and long, keeping the band around your knees. Sitting up nice and tall and drawing the shoulder blades down away from the ears, keeping that length in the spine. And send those knees and shins up off the floor into boat pose. Reaching the hands down towards your feet. We're here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Gently releasing the feet back down to the earth. Option to do the same position that you just did, or you can kick your legs up straight and see how that feels. The objective here is to keep that upper body as tall as you can. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, releasing slowly to the floor. Invite that shake at the end range as you release back down to the floor, softening the body back down into the floor here. Taking a slight bend in your knees, feet come back down to the earth. You're going to take your hands behind the head. So the objective here is not to pull on the neck. This is just a touch point so that you can keep the chest nice and open. You're going to lift both feet up off the floor. And you're going to use your belly button, drawing into your spine to take your chest up off the floor to hover gently here. Holding, softening shoulders away from ears. Maybe you can crunch up just a little bit more. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, releasing. Great. Now gently stepping your feet hips distance apart, noticing some tension on the band. You're not necessarily pushing out too far in the band. Putting your weight through the heels, hands come down to your side, pressing up off the floor, sending the hips up to the sky. If you have any discomfort in your knees, go ahead and bring those feet back towards your bottom just a little bit more. So option is stay here. We're going to take that right knee out to the side for a clamshell, rotating that hip open and back in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Continuing to hold that bridge, taking the left side for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great job. Gently releasing those hips back down to the floor. Repositioning the feet if you need to find more comfort. Pressing the hands back into the floor, sending the hips up toward the sky again for bridge pose. We're going to take some marching steps now. So bringing that knee up toward the nose, finding a little bit of resistance with the band, having to find some little micro adjustments to keep the hips stabilized. Also trying to keep the hips lifted, so not hanging out on the low back, but using those glutes to keep your hip up nice and high when you're having that moment of being on one leg. Exhale, releasing vertebrae by vertebrae, articulating each spinal segment with the abdominal muscles so that the tailbone is the last thing to come on down to the floor. And yay, you can release your band and put that off to the side. So one more bridge pose here. So lifting those hips back up for the sky. You're going to gently lift your toes up off the floor. This might be enough of a hamstring engagement for you. But if this feels okay, go ahead and walk your heels out a little bit away from you and then back in. And then out again. It's 2, going to 5, 3, 4, and 5. Releasing vertebrae by vertebrae again so that the tailbone rests last on the floor. Bringing that right foot up toward your right knee, coming into this figure 4 position. You're gently going to push on your left knee, almost like you're pressing that knee away from your body, opening up that front of the hip. Exhale, grabbing the back of that knee and pulling it across towards your right shoulder. You should feel a gentle stretch in the outer left hip. If you experience any pinching in the groin region, any discomfort, you can opt for that first position. Exhale, release that foot back down to the earth as you send the right foot up and over the left knee, pressing that right knee away from you, opening the front of the hip. Exhale, releasing, bringing that knee across your body toward the left side. Stretching that right hip, getting into the piriformis muscle, glutes. Gently releasing that foot back down to the earth. Hands come out into a T position, palms facing the floor. As you separate your feet about mat distance apart, just gonna let the knees drop down toward the floor. They might not go all the way to the floor. If this is comfortable, you can continue with your gaze upright, or you can take your gaze over down the left arm. And gentle spinal twist. Inhale, using that core to pull you back up to a neutral spine. Taking the knees down to the left side to your spinal twist. Taking the gaze over the right hand. Inhale, using that core to pull you back up. Taking your final resting pose or shavasana. You can grab a pillow or a blanket or anything else that you might need to be comfortable during this final resting pose. Sending the hips out nice and long. Heels reaching toward the bottom of the mat, letting the toes flop out. Maybe your palms come to your belly or turned up toward the sky to your side. Take one deep inhalation, releasing that through the mouth. Softening the heels into your mat. Feeling the contact of your calf muscle with your mat. Softening the kneecaps, releasing tension in the thigh muscle. Feeling the back of the thigh in your seat sinking into the ground. Releasing tension in the belly. Elongating the spine from the low back, mid back, top of the head. Feeling the tension release in the shoulders as your shoulders rotate open, creating length in the front of the shoulders from one shoulder to the other. Letting go of tension in the fingers, in the forearms. Allowing the triceps to rest gently on the floor. Softening the shoulders away from the ears. Relaxing the face and the jaw. Maybe your tongue rests gently behind the teeth. Separating the teeth gently. Relaxing the eyes and the forehead. in the space between your eyebrows. Your whole body is relaxed. Letting go of anything in your mind that is not serving you at this very moment. Breathe naturally.